Welcome to this edition of the High Strangeness Factor, copyrighted on the Paranormal UK radio network. I'm your host, Steve Ward. On every episode of the High Strangeness Factor, we examine all aspects of the paranormal and the unexplained. We always try to seek out patterns that may lie hidden beneath the surface. Andy, welcome back to the show.
Yes, indeed, I am back. It's been quite a while, I think. Just been doing some other bits and pieces, working on a couple of books. I'm rewriting one, as you know, and at the same time putting together another one, which is proving to be more involved than I thought it was going to be. It's a kind of a collection of stuff I used to do many years ago, as I probably mentioned before. But I've just discovered more notebooks. I've got about a dozen notebooks from years ago. So I didn't realize I still had. Most of them are about a third of the use before I've gone on to another one, but there's more stuff that I can put into it. So that's kept me quite busy. And also, as you know, I'm working on a series of videos, which I'm still working on to the point that I've now bought a whole new computer with a much better graphics card to carry on working on them. I keep going on about this. Must have been for at least a year or so I've been doing this, but I haven't launched it yet. But I've made a final absolute decision that October, in time for you know what, of course, at the end of October, it will be ideal time to start a video series about ghost investigations. But as I say, it's led to me buying a whole new computer and with a new graphics card to help make the videos, and to reroute all the sound and audio, which I suddenly discovered I hadn't sorted out Skype until about 5 minutes ago. So I almost wasn't on the show, as you know, but I am here and we are raring to go.
Well, that's a good deal. You know, I dread having to buy a new computer, which is going to happen at some point because of all the stuff you have to do to get started up again and transfer everything.
Absolutely. I'm say I've had this probably getting on for about 3 or 4 weeks now, but I'm still not finished putting it back together. I mean, most of the main stuff I put on fairly quickly, obviously the video editing software and the audio editing software that I use for the show. But the other bits and pieces have just taken longer. And you got to use something like a program and think, oh, it's not actually on this machine. I've got to go and reinstall it. So that takes forever. But it's been interesting, certainly. Not something I plan to do again in the near future, I hope, at least.
Well, let's introduce our guest. A very interesting guest tonight. After graduating from St. John's University with a BS in criminal justice and law, Jocko Johnson was accepted and attended the NYPD Police Academy. It was only the second class to be hired after the massive layoffs of police in the mid to late 1970s. The class was 3,000 recruits, and the 6-month course went 8 to 4 and 4 to 12. He was assigned to a field training unit and then to the 72nd Precinct in Brooklyn for steady midnights with another rookie for a partner. It had at that time the largest concentration of youth gangs in the U.S. A few years after compiling an excellent high arrest record, one of the city's elite task forces came calling, and he worked with his partner from the academy. This was a rapid deployment unit that handled riots, protests, and whatever police department the borough chief felt they needed. This was the period of the war on drugs and some of the highest homicide rates in the city's history. The task force patrolled these ultra-high crime precincts and covered the overflow and tour changes for these overwhelmed areas of very high crime. He was then promoted to anti-crime plainclothes undercover operations within the task force, specializing in suppression of violent street crime and removing guns off the street. During this time, Johnson was assigned on temporary duty to the Intel Division Dignitary Protection Unit. Trained by the Secret Service, FBI, and elite State Department protective detail, he provided bodyguard protection for President Reagan, heads of state from Italy, Japan, and even Yasser Arafat, as well as Walter Mondale. As the New York City beefed up to fight the war on crack, he was again asked to join the Narcotics Investigation Unit, which worked major narcotic cases. That is where he sustained a serious line of duty injury. After 2 surgeries to correct his knee, he was retired from the NYPD after 10 years on the job. He moved south to get a bigger bang for his buck and settled to start a family. He worked for U.S. contractors for approximately 6 years, holding a top secret clearance and protected crypto gear, and traveled to hand deliver sensitive parts to upgrade the Navy's aircraft carriers and nuclear-powered subs, both Ohio missile and LA-class fast attack subs. That is where he read in the local paper about a homicide. It looked like murders he had seen and investigated in New York City. He contacted the sheriff department and lent assistance as well as coordinating with his old partner in the now in the homicide unit in the NYPD. The perp was captured and extradited back south to stand trial for approximately 4 murders, with a gang of 7 charged for running guns, drugs, and money from the north, east, and south. The sheriff asked him if he'd work with them as a reserve duty deputy detective, and he volunteered. He put together a team of retired NYPD detectives, and I heard about some of this on Mac's show, which we'll get into. This is really good stuff. And 2 detectives from the sheriff's office for a squad of 7. They solved some of the coldest homicide cases, one being the oldest unsolved for 13 years. They had a very good conviction rate and also gave relief to the families of some, clearing cases and determining some as accidental, some as self-inflicted, others of natural cause. After approximately 9 years, even doing desk work on a part-time basis, he finally retired again, this time under his own steam. He needed further surgery to help correct his original line of duty injuries, as well as wear and tear. Johnson, and what became as known as the New York detectives, these dedicated retired police officers, worked for almost 10 years for no pay. When the sheriff retired, so did he again. The cold case homicide squad was disbanded and merged into the detective division by the new sheriff. Now, you might think we're not going to talk about the paranormal tonight, but we definitely will. Anyway, Jocko, welcome to the High Strangeness Factor.
Hi, Steve. How are you? It's great to be here.
Let's tell people how you and I have met, because of course I'm a correspondent weekly on Mac Maloney's Military X-Files, which is kind of a crazy show. You never know what's going to happen, and you're kind of you're almost a regular on there. But you're so close to being a regular, you should be getting more pay.
Yeah, we both should, right?
I think so.
I'm used to working for no pay.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, but I heard a lot about some of your police work and some of the paranormal aspects too. So I thought this would be a lot of fun. So tell us a little more about what it was like working in New York City, being a cop and in these periods of time with high crime and all this stuff going on.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you first off, it was very different than what it is today. Of course, I mean we could see that what's going on around the world, or the country at least, and we were respected in a way, and maybe we were feared because we were on that street and we were taught a whole different way to police the city, I think, than what's going on today. Where, if you remember how last summer, I guess it was, where the police were getting hit with, buckets of water and different things, and they would just walk away from that. That would have never happened because we were taught, you had a defensive perimeter, both physically and a psychological perimeter. And anybody entered into that, they did that at their own risk, I guess, because they were told, they knew we were holding the streets for the good citizens of the city who paid their taxes, obeyed the law, and we were there to protect them and, make sure that stuff didn't happen. So if they're going to do it to the cops, they're definitely going to have no fear of the, regular citizen. And
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What was it like? Now, so you were a rookie. You and your partner were both rookies. Did I read that right?
Yeah, the captain had called us in because we only had one class before that. It was about 1,000 guys, I think. And the captain called us in the office and said, "Look, I got nobody else to team you guys with. You always start off in the city working steady midnights. That's the first tour any rookie gets." And he says, "I'm going to put you guys together because I don't have a choice. You screw up, you're going to be sorry." So,
well, that's some on-the-job training.
So yeah, and we worked out pretty good. We it was a time you have to break in with the old guys that are there already, the veterans, which were older, because they've been there for so long, since these guys were just getting ready to retire because the city had laid so many cops off and so much attrition over the years where they didn't hire at all, and the whole thing with the city was going bankrupt and it was just terrible.
Yeah.
And it was the worst situation because, you were just throwing sand into the wind. And we were just holding a line, waiting.
Now, wasn't
Trying.
the Son of Sam murders took place some years before your
Right, that was
time, right?
before. That was before, yes.
I
Yeah.
read, and I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe you can tell me that the police force wasn't that good at that time, or did some
Oh
people even
no,
say, no,
no. I mean,
that's
I'm
incorrect?
gonna. Yeah, I'll tell you right
Okay,
now.
good.
Regardless of what period in time, regardless of whatever happened, when the first watch patrol, the watchman, set foot on that shores of New York City and from Amsterdam, and it was New Amsterdam. The city of New York had always a good police force. I would say, as it developed in the 1800s and later, we are the finest. They are the finest. They still are today. I mean, you will see where there are crimes every day. I'll still read the New York Post, and people are getting shot, and they'll let them right out of jail. But our guys go get these people. I mean, they bring them in. There's no doubt these cops are. We are the best in the world. I hate to say it, but I'm being prejudiced, maybe. But from what I
Yeah,
saw and
that's all
how
right.
we worked, and how others would take up what we did, it would kind of roll across the country. They would look to us for different tactics and different ideas and different methods of using evidence and how to do it. And we do a good job, I tell you. If it wasn't for that ability or that desire to get that job done, why would you do it? I mean, especially today.
Right.
They're not
Uh,
even indemnifying the police anymore. If you make a mistake, which everybody's human, the littlest, the smallest, you have seconds, split nanoseconds to decide what to do sometimes.
I, I,
When I was there, we were answering 40, 50 jobs a night. That's how busy it was. And
wow.
we were taking the overflow from real cops, precinct cops that were doing their job in that precinct. And we were assigned to those precincts to cover like between the shift changes and, pick up that extra or back them up because in the task force, our main goal was just really as a tactical patrol force. They would call us like, we were the 82nd Airborne of the department, they would say. When we were the Marines Expeditionary Unit, when they needed someone to go, we were the guys. And, we were ready. We had our hats and bats and shields. And if you would have blinked, you would have thought we were the Roman army because our tactics were exactly the same.
Well, it sounds like the 1-Atom-12 guys had a pretty cushy job.
I think so, yeah, from what I thought. They really did.
But what about any of the TV shows that have been or out there? Are there any that you looked at that you thought were a decent representation of police work?
Barney Miller was funny. And
Oh yeah, that was great.
reminds me because I got to tell you, cops in New York, or the cops I worked with, were the funniest guys in the world. I mean, pee your pants, lay down, crying, funny. Okay, and I think we did that because we picked on each other, we did jokes to each other, and I think practical jokes and things. I think we did it to take away from some of that misery we saw every day.
Hold on just a second. Andy, did you guys get Barney Miller over there in the UK?
I don't know of it. No, that doesn't even say it wasn't shown over here, but I don't know of it. So
That was what, the 70s, I think.
Yeah, and
Jocko.
the precincts still look like that.
Yeah. Well, it was a ensemble cast. Hal Linden was the lead. Max Gale, a lot of great character actors. Jack Sue, Max Gale, that showed up in different things. But it was very well written, and again, it was a comedy. But Jocko just said, I mean, the precinct looked old and dirty on the inside, and very well one of these very well written sitcoms. I think that if you ever get a chance to see it, you'd appreciate it. But what about Joseph Wambach's stuff? Police Story?
Well,
was an
I don't know.
anthology
I
series?
mean, I've read all his books and saw a lot of that stuff, but I never was. I wasn't a cop in L.A., so I don't know. We always heard that the L.A. cops were strictly by the book, didn't have a sense of humor, kind of like robotic. This is what we were always told. But the other show I really enjoyed watching was like NYPD Blue.
Okay.
And there wasn't as much romance and all that stuff going on. because that just, if it was, nobody knew about it, and that was good
Mhm.
because they didn't want nobody to know about it.
Mm.
And the other thing was, I would always get upset because it was written by cops and helped them, and they would like quit at 12 o'clock or whatever, and there was never a midnight shift. You'd see like one guy, but we worked 24/7. You never had nobody there. There was always a detective squad or somebody up there.
Right. I guess they couldn't pay enough actors to cover
I
the midnight
guess.
shift.
Yeah, they would show like one guy sitting there, as they were all leaving and going home.
But it was fairly well written, and I remember seeing a
Yeah.
few episodes of that. Right. I guess Police Story was L.A. I remember enjoying that. And of course, there are a lot of good private eye shows, but
There was a
television.
show on with Frank Ward, I think his name was. I'm trying to remember his name, but Jack Ward. I'm sorry, Jack Warden.
Oh, Jack Warden. Okay.
Yeah, and it was on in the '60s. I remember as a young kid watching it. It was called just NYPD,
Okay.
and it was a great show. Again, black and white, dirty, filthy precincts. They were in the ghettos during the '60s when all that unrest was going on, and it was some good stuff.
What was it? I know we can talk a lot with. We'll probably come back to some of this, but what was it like switching to plain clothes? Was that a big deal? What?
It was a promotion. We had done some good work. We had made some really good collars, and uh, we had set up a sting on a bribery scam where they were trying to. These Russian guys were trying to bribe us for this car stop we made, and this guy was totally intoxicated, had pounds of money sitting around. Really, he had to show what that was from. You can't just have like thousands and thousands of dollars and tell you, what is this? Like, what'd you do? Stick up or something? Or what? And we set up a sting, and we locked this guy up, and we locked a bunch of his people up. When they had these clubs, these Russian clubs, and so it came to the notice of the chief of the department as we were sent accommodation for it, and we went up to this integrity committee, they call it, and they give you a choice, and their thing was, you want a medal? And I think I had like 16, 20 of them already, and I said, well, what's the other choice? And they said, we can put you wherever you want to go. And we said, well, the sergeant's been trying to get us into anti-crime, and we want to be there, my partner and I. And that's what we took. And the sergeant was thrilled because he had some guys there that were kind of slow, really not caring. And they weren't making their numbers. And we kind of like went in there and injected it, where we had guys that were vets from Vietnam working for 20-something years, and we got them going, man, and they were crazy. We got energy into them, and they taught us a lot of stuff, boy. So, yeah, it's a pretty big deal, I guess. At that time, it was used just for suppression of violent street crime. And I remember the first day we went on patrol, we picked up a guy who was holding a woman on a bus stop by gunpoint, and we grabbed this guy, and the sergeant couldn't believe us. We brought him back. Like, we were out on the street for like a half an hour. And he was like, man, you guys are unbelievable. You kidding me? I was like, no. And it turned out we got a phone call about a day or so later, and the district attorney's office called us and said, yeah, we got a problem. I was like, you do? He's like, because I don't have any problems. What kind of problems you got? And he says, well, so-and-so, we brought him in, and he was released on bail, but we didn't realize it came back late, his prints, and he's wanted. He had a trial in absentia in St. Louis, and he was supposed to be serving a life term for homicide. I'm like, oh, that's good. So, and again, you have that problem. We didn't let him go. We brought him to you. And they said, well, yeah, we authorized all kinds of overtime, and, we're going to need you guys to track him down. And I think we worked 48 hours straight, and the guy was screaming to give up because we had harassed, or I don't say harassed, I guess we visited and interviewed every relative and friend he had on the planet, I think, and they were calling him saying, look, you need to give yourself up because we're not living like this. And he finally, surrendered to his attorney. They called us, and we went down and picked him up, brought him back.
They should have made a reality show based around you guys.
I don't know. At the time we came, I never went home the same way. I always staggered it. And, I think all of us did that because, we didn't take our cars home. We didn't come to work in uniform like they do in some place like they do where I am now. People would kill cops up there, left and right. We have like a wall of honor in the headquarters, and there's another one down at the Battery. There's over 800 or something names on it, if I'm not mistaken. It might be more now. But that's a lot of people,
Well, now, on TV.
Guys I knew, I worked with every day, ate with, and they're dead, and it's hard.
Wow.
It's tough. It's like war.
Yeah, and thank God there are people out there like you doing it. But just the last, I'm just really curious about all this. But the last kind of general question, I watched a couple episodes of one of the most unrealistic cop shows, Starsky and Hutch. You guys didn't have a cool car like Starsky and Hutch did.
No, we're lucky our cars even went half the time because they, the city didn't have the money. At 40, 50,000 miles, they were falling apart because of, the stop and go,
geez,
60 to 0, 60 to 0 at every corner, every stoplight. You can't just go blasting through New York City. And then potholes and the weather, the cars would disintegrate.
Well, what do you think about?
Definitely didn't.
When you watch a cop show or a movie, when you see the chase scenes and the shootouts, what goes through your mind?
I can't watch it. I'll just start saying this and then now they're going to do this. Watch. Oh, this is wrong. That's wrong. This, and my wife will go nuts and say, "You got to suspend reality. This is just a TV show." I'm saying, "Yeah, but don't you understand? People think this is the way we are and what we're doing, and it's not like that."
Yeah, like T.J. Hooker.
Right.
In the beginning, it was so stylized in the beginning. They'd be after the bad guy, and something would happen where somebody would cut them off, so the bad guy would get away, so that they could pursue him the rest of the episode.
That's right, and they solved the crime in half an hour, and uniform didn't go investigate and do these things. So you just answered a call, you filed your report, it went to the detectives, and that was it. On to the next because you had no time.
And Shatner's wig never fell off.
No, and he always jumped across the hood of that car.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was
and never had a scratch on it.
You could tell that was him sometimes, and not a stunt guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask you. I know you've had paranormal experiences. I know you've had some strange stuff happen on the job. But were you somebody that did you have experiences when you were a young boy, or was this something that always followed you, or was it something that just happened one time, or maybe just a few times?
It's funny you asked that because I was thinking about this the other night, and my grandfather was also a police officer. He was an inspector, which is like a colonel, and this was in the 40s, and the 50s, early 30s, 40s. And when I was a kid, I grew up on all these stories. I had a lot of family that were cops, and so I kind of carried on the family tradition. And we had half the family I knew, cousins or whatever, they were doing things that were, I don't know, there's this thing they call the mafia. Our governor, Mario Cuomo, who's the current governor's father, at the time swore there was no such thing. And you had a choice where you wanted to go in the family, I think, which way you were going to act. And I took the law, and we would hear these stories about it. And my grandfather died before I got on the job. And he raised me pretty much. And after the funeral, I came home and I would smell these roses in the hallway of my house, like this, into the hallway, and open this vestibule onto the porch when the mailman came and stuff. And I would always get this smell, these roses. And I felt, man, it's just like the funeral with Grandpa, And my grandma would say, "He's following you. He's with you." And I would get that smell sometimes when we were getting ready to go through a door on a warrant and you didn't know who was in there. And I would ask these guys, "You smell that?" And they would say, "No." And I smelled it, And then it just stopped one day. And I was pretty well established. I knew where I was going. I had everything I, wanted on the job. I was getting ready to be promoted to detective. I got injured. 3 months later, I was supposed to be promoted. They took me off the list, and they wouldn't because they didn't want to pay me, the additional salary I get, so my pension is what they do. And they said, my grandma said, "Well, he knows you're okay. He's not with you anymore because he knows you're okay. He was with you when you were going through those doors and crawling through alleyways and on rooftops, and now you just don't need him. So to me, that was something,
Hmm.
it's a little
Yeah.
bit strange because people, I don't know, it was this smell of roses. Once in a while, I'll smell it, and I realize there's something going on, that's happening in my life, and whether it be a medical thing or something, but it's like he's there, and
Just as if he was still watching over you, and especially
exactly,
during dangerous times.
exactly, yeah, that was about the only thing really. Otherwise, but we had an old house that we always felt like there was something noises in there. We slept in the third floor, it was like an attic, but it was all finished. And we always felt like I would always get that feeling where your hair on the back of your neck sticks up, when
Hmm.
I knew, like, on the job later, you'd get that feeling, you'd turn around, you'd look, or you'd know something, you just had to know it was there. It told you something was wrong. And we used to get that in the house, and it wasn't just me, it was my brothers too. And it was weird. We didn't want to stay up there anymore. We would sleep together when we were younger, down on the next floor down. So you
Uh,
never saw anything or heard, I just heard
right.
things. I was on it.
That's probably the earliest experience you had that would be considered
Yeah,
supernatural or paranormal.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
And then what would be the next things that happened to it? Were they things that happened personally, or things on the job?
Well, it was things on the job. I mean, there was some strange things where it's a strange place, New York. There's a lot of history. I remember when I was going to college, I was working at a bank downtown, and Trinity Church, which is one of the first churches that was put up in the city, is right around the corner from Wall Street, and it's right behind the World Trade Center. When the
Hmm.
World Trade Center came down, debris was all over, but this church was untouched. It was like things fell around it, and it was amazing. I mean, because you saw those towers come down.
Hmm.
And there was a story about Peter Stuyvesant, who was the first governor of New Amsterdam, and he had a wooden leg, and people would swear that. As a matter of fact, it was in that Nicolas Cage movie, the treasure thing, whatever they were hunting.
Oh, National
National
Treasure.
treasure, yeah.
Yeah, they go into those like crypts or whatever in there. I mean, they're not really like that. It's not like that. But the church has a slate floor, and supposedly when the British pulled into the harbor, he and said, we're going to flatten the city unless you surrender. We're here to take it over. He went into that church to pray to decide what he was going to do, and people would swear on the days around that they would hear this person, like a step and then a clunk, like clunk, clunk,
Ah.
like a peg leg hitting the slate floor. And I would go in there sometimes at my lunch hour after work just to see if I could catch something, but I never heard it. But people would swear about this, and there was more than one person at a time who heard it. So that was kind of weird too.
I've actually been to that church. I've been to New York several times, and I've been in there, so that's interesting. I shall have to listen to that next time we go.
Yeah, it's it's an old place. A lot of wars, a lot of things went through there. A lot of riots, deaths. When you think about it, diseases. It's just incredible.
Well, I used to live in London, so I know what that can be like.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, that was before us, right?
Yeah.
What other kind of things did you encounter?
Well, I think I told a couple of these stories on Mac's show. We had when I was working in the precinct in Brooklyn, there's a huge cemetery down there called Greenwood Cemetery. And I mean, there are all kinds of famous people in there, and it's huge. It goes on and on and on. And it was an original just farm. Brooklyn was farmland. There was nothing there. I mean, Manhattan was north of like 14th Street was all farmland. And you can't even believe that today, but that's the way it was. And this is like, the 1700s and stuff. And when they were fighting the Revolutionary War, um, they actually would fight this battle. They had a running battle through Long Island into Brooklyn, and then they escaped. The army of Washington escaped into Manhattan. Now, they went through these places. I mean, like right where I lived, and where I was on patrol in these places. So every night, my partner and I, we were working midnights, about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd see this woman walking around the cemetery, just along the outside of the gate. And she was walking with her head down pretty fast. She had like these kind of boots, looked like leather boots, maybe rubber, we're not sure. She had a long coat. She reminded us of a refugee that you see in the World War II movies. Like these, these people are refugees and they're leaving, trying to get ahead of the battle, getting out of their town. They're pulling carts or whatever. And she had this like little babushka head thing covered, she had it
Right.
down. And we never really saw her face. So, we would ask the guys in the precinct, the old timers, and we said, what's with that lady over there? Oh, that's the lady in the cemetery. Don't go near her. Don't talk to her. Listen to me, guys. Don't even, just forget it. Make believe you don't see it. When you see it, just keep going. Well, we said, okay, but they shouldn't have told us that because now we had to find out. And every night we would say, you want to go? Come on, come on, come on. And, remember what the captain told us if we screw up? No, geez, yeah, okay, we would go along. So one day, though, we had it, and we're like, look, we're going to talk to the site. Now we're going to do it, right? It must have took us months to want to do this. And we just pulled over. My partner was driving. I was at the window, and I rolled down the window. It was kind of a fall, cool night, kind of foggy, misty. Because you got this whole area. It's all like a park, it's a cemetery.
It sounds like a perfect setting for a horror movie, Jocko.
I'm telling you. And, we got out of the car, and she's walking. And they call us, Miss, come here, please. Can you come over to the car? And, she looked at us. I can see it was police. And she walked over, and I'm looking down the window now. I'm trying to look up at her face. I said, everything okay? You okay? And she just answered us like I couldn't understand what she was saying. Something about her son or something. And then we saw her face because she looked up and I kind of bent my head out and over. My partner's looking over. I swear to you, Steve, her face looked like the old black and white televisions. That you had that horizontal control it and vertical, whatever, like it would flip over the film or something. It was like staticky, like snow gray. It was like the most unbelievable thing. My partner, like, practically he was losing his mind. Get up, we gotta go. I was like, go. I wanted, I was trying to reach over and push on the gas pedal on his foot, Keep going, get out of here, let's go. And we went to the nearest church because we're both Catholic. And we're both Italians and Catholic. And man, we went right to the nearest church. And we were like, is this place over? We got to get in here and say a prayer. This was like a demon. We don't know what it was,
That's amazing.
And it was just a waste. And we never told anybody. I think when I had told Mac, I never had really said anything to anybody about it. And, you guys were like the first to hear about it in like 30 years or something. I mean, we never told it. We definitely didn't tell anybody in the precinct because they told us not to do it, I don't know if they knew more about it or what, but we wanted no part of it after that.
That's pretty amazing.
That was one.
It kept playing out, though. I mean, you would see this lady all the time.
She'd still be there, but we just drove ahead, hit the gas, and had it. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's on the street pretty much. If you're out there, you're going to work or you're doing something bad, So we would see it and go.
Did anybody ever call you? Did anybody experience a haunting or a bump or something that was just something paranormal and they called you in because they thought it was an intruder?
People would call us and say, I heard something, and, we'd always search the house for more. People would come home and say, I realized things are moved and whatever, but nothing's missing, stuff like that. And that happened a lot because people are always afraid, so the first thing they do is they call 911. So we get there and, we would tell them, okay, no problem. We'll do the search. We'll search your house. We get our flashlight, our guns out, walk around, make it look good, make they all feel safe afterwards, And we tell them, yeah, don't worry, call us anytime. You ever have a problem, call us again. We'll be here, But never saw anything, never heard anything, but they did because you could tell some of these people were shook up.
What about, did you have any other experiences on the job or?
There was one, I think I'd also told you guys, which was really, really baffling. And to this day, I can't figure it out. It just, you think about it at times. And I think every time someone picks up a hairdryer, I think about this. We got a call also again in the middle of the night and comes over the radio. It's a 911 call. But the central operator, the 911 operator, could not track the call. We had caller ID and knew where it came from and everything way before it was ever available to anybody. Our 911 system was one of the first and, the most modern at the time. And I'm sure it's advanced way beyond this now, but they could tell where a phone number came from, if it was a residence or if it was a payphone, and they could actually call the number back because we would say, "Can you get some information? Further information. Call the complainant. What's going on? Or they keep them on the phone, right?" Well, this call comes in, and it's not a voice, but it just comes over the computer that there's a fire in his house. It comes over the operator's computer. She dispatches us to the call. Smell of smoke, was an investigate, 1010 investigate. So we go out there and we knock on the door, and this elderly woman comes out. It's like a row of row houses all together, 2 family houses, 2 or 3 family houses. And she comes out to the front door, and it's the middle of the night. We're banging on the door. Police, open up, right? And she's kind of nervous now. This little old lady comes out. She was a Spanish woman. It was a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. And she was like, what is it? She couldn't understand what we're doing here. So he's like, "Man, we have a call that there's possible smoke. Somebody smells smoke or something. Is there a problem? We'll call the fire department here." No. She goes, "I don't know. I was sleeping. I said, can we come in? You want us to check?" And she goes, "Yeah, please look around, because I have tenants upstairs. My son's on the 3rd floor." So we go in, and our house is fine. We go up the stairs. As soon as we get up the stairs, we can start smelling this wire smell, like wire burning, like an electrical fire. And we get up to the 2nd floor. We bang on the door. This lady comes out. She's in a nightgown, bathrobe. You could see she was sleeping. This lady, about in her 40s. And she says, "Yeah, well, what's going on?" She's all nervous now. I says, "You have anybody else here?" She goes, "Yeah, just me and my 2 daughters, and my husband's working or something. He worked at night." I said, "Well, we need to check because we smell something. Do you smell that?" She goes, "Yeah, we hear this noise, this humming. Like, this like electrical noise." Like, what the heck is that? We're looking all around, and when we put our flashlights out, we could see that, there was like smoke in the air from the light. And we're trying to see where it's coming from, and we can smell it getting stronger and see it, and we get to the bathroom. On the sink is a basket, and they have like all their hair stuff, like to set their hair, I guess, or whatever.
Right.
And, hairspray, whatever. And there's a dryer in it, a hair dryer, like a pistol thing, hair dryer.
Right.
And this handheld hair dryer is running. And it's red hot because inside is like, it's like the wires from a toaster wrapped around some kind of asbestos thing, in the plastic. Right. And it's got a motor which blows air through it. Well, this thing is red hot. The plastic is like dripping, gonna melt. And we're like, "Oh my God, we're lucky we got here." We're thinking, because this thing, this house would have went up, and there's hairspray and all this stuff, highly flammable around it. And my partner says, "Yank the plug, man. Pull the plug." And I'm by the sink, and he's on the other side by the toilet. And I'm looking for the plug. And it was a cold night. It was a winter time, so I had my gloves on. And we used to have these thick yellow, gray gloves, and they had wool lining. So, we're like, I'm thinking, all right, I can probably grab it. It's hot. I pick up the wire, and it's not plugged. It's not plugged into anything. It's just laying there.
It wasn't plugged in?
No, it wasn't plugged in.
How strange.
I pick it up,
bizarre.
and I show it to him, and he goes, "Holy," and he grabs it, and I see it, throw it in the toilet. And we just dumped it in the toilet. It sizzled, and put it out and grabbed the wire out and said, "Oh, man." And the woman was like, "Oh, my God." And now her daughter comes in. She's kind of young, in her 20s, something. She was like, "Did you use the hairdryer? You didn't take it off, turn it off?" She says, "No, I only use it in the morning when I go to work. I'm not going to set my hair to go to bed." And nobody knows. They didn't use it since the morning. And, but the plug wasn't even in the wall socket. So how did it get energy? We're like, it's got a battery in it or something? Because I never seen that before. They were like, no.
How was the call?
They were baffled because they were half in their sleep,
How was the call generated?
Well, we went back to their car and get on the radio to give our disposition about the job that, unfounded. We're not going to tell them because that'll be the end of that, because everybody hears it going back. And we just said, no, it's unfounded. Everything's fine. And, and I think we had gone back to the station. I went to the payphone and I called the operator. We all had the numbers for our dispatches. And we called him. We said, how'd you get that call? She goes, "It just came up on the screen. I can't track a number. There's nothing for it."
How strange.
And it just was up on my screen.
That's
Oh.
bizarre. I mean, it's almost like there are poltergeist cases where there's intense heat and fires are created. Perhaps that what was going on, but then that was like the evil force, but some good force or something.
Yeah, I mean, we just felt like somebody wanted, somebody maybe
Warned.
from beyond was trying to save them, or something. I mean, something weird. I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Well, it's funny because I've just reread a book by Scott Rogo and Raymond Bayless, written several years ago, called "Phone Calls from the Dead."
Ah,
And
yes.
there was one in there where this woman, I won't go into all the detail, but this woman picks up the phone. She hears this voice of this young girl. She says, "Well, your voice sounds familiar, but I can't place you." And she says, "You know me," and she gives the name, and it's a girl that had died a couple of years before.
Mm.
And then what registered with the lady that picked up the phone, there
I'm
must
getting
be something.
chills now.
No, there must be something wrong with her father, because her father had a disability, and if he fell asleep in a certain position, he could really hurt his back. He could really be hurt. So she found him. She went to look for him, found he had just nodded off, and he was fine. But that was so this little girl didn't say anything, but just the fact that she got a phone call from somebody that was deceased, or seemed to be, was the warning. So anyway, that's just fascinating. That's something that could easily be written up in a good article or a paranormal, one of these great anthologies. Let me do my quick station identification here. You are listening to the High Strangeness Factor, copyrighted on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I am Steve Ward, and Andy Mercer and I are talking to Jocko Johnson, an ex-New York cop. We're talking all about what it was like being a New York police officer and some of the strange things that happened on the job. Um, uh, that's really, really bizarre. I mean, there's on both sides, it's bizarre. The way the
It
call
shook
was
us up.
generated, the way it happened.
We didn't get shook up about a lot of things we've seen. I had people die in my lap, rush into the hospital, and all kinds of stuff like that. But this was something that was extremely bizarre, and just something where you just say, I don't even want to think about it, talk about this.
And so when you got back, you just told them that it was just a false alarm.
Yeah, I mean, we just said it was unfounded. That was one of the codes we used, and there was nothing to worry about. It was all took care
you know
of it.
what?
Yeah, we checked it. Everybody's fine.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to be the one
Oh,
to fill out the police report.
No.
Yeah, we found this
They send us right to the shrink.
That's
hair
really one of
dryer
those.
unplugged in. Yeah.
It's one of those cases I absolutely love because it doesn't fit any category. You
Right.
can't. It's a standard ghost haunting, or it's a standard. I mean, it sounds a funny word to use, but a standard poltergeist activity. That's just pure high strangeness. It doesn't make any sense. I just love those kind of experiences. They're fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And just the hair dryer
Mm.
was bizarre.
Melted.
The call, the way it was generated, however,
All
is
of it.
bizarre. So you
All
got
of it.
two things coming together. I actually I don't know how many how many more stories you might have, Jocko. Do you have other paranormal events you can share with us?
I'll tell you one thing. Do you ever hear of Father Malachi Martin?
Oh, sure.
Okay, well, he was an exorcist for the church, and he said
Right.
he had the most people that were possessed. He felt anyway, the Northeast. He said there was a huge increase in all of this stuff. But there was a police officer who worked. I think he was a transit police officer and sergeant, and they merged all the departments later. But Ralph Searchy,
Okay.
ever heard of him? And Father Martin would call him to go on to these exorcisms with him because they would need somebody to hold these people and do things. And he was a pretty big guy, and he wanted somebody, a law officer, and I don't know how they met somehow, but he read a book, and I'm going to tell you, I read half of it, and I had to put it down because it scared the hell out of me. So I'll find out the name of it, and I'll let you know because I can't remember. I got it buried here someplace, but he did a TV show for a little while, and he has a whole bunch of these guys that you could see they probably were cops and stuff, and they work with him, and they got called to places. He's pretty much lives a celibate, like priestly life, almost like a monk now, and he's dedicated to this because he saw things that I'm sure makes this stuff like Little League. But it's out there. I mean, it's out there.
So you, were there any other paranormal stories that you had, Jocko? I didn't want to
Yeah.
cut you off. Oh yeah.
No problem. There was one where we had a guy, and it's well, I'll tell you another kind of bizarre one before a funny one. I was on patrol one day, and I had a foot post. They were having a festival on the avenue, the big avenue, Fifth Avenue, and we were supposed to, go up and down the side streets where the homes were, because they didn't want anybody vandalizing or going down there, sitting around in people's areas or parking, and they had problem with that, people going, boy, to get in there, do whatever,
Mhm.
So we were on foot posts, and we had to go up and down these streets off this avenue, and there was a row of houses again, and it was right off the water down there where Industry City is now, which used to be a munitions manufacturing and weapons plants for the wartime in the Second World War. They made all these, I think maybe for the First World War too. There were all these factories where they just, blocks and blocks right on the pier, and boats would come up. They had their own railroad in there, and it's a huge place. But I think we wound up putting a jail in there and a barge with prisoners from the narcotic stuff, that we were having so many people arrested for, crack. It was a total epidemic. There's something in your brain that when you smoke crack once, it affects the part of your brain that tells you when you're hungry. So once you have it, you got to have it all the time until you quit it or whatever. They use substitutes or whatever to get you off it. But it's like you just can't stop using it. That's why it was so terrible. So anyway, I'm walking down this, this street. I'm just twirling my nightstick, doing my little thing, not paying attention to anybody. And I'm looking around. There's these 3 houses that were being renovated. So there's 2 of them and one in the middle. 3 houses. They're all stuck together. And I just happened to stop, and I had a cigarette in my mouth. I lit the lighter, and I went to have a smoke because, I could cup it, and I'm not supposed to smoke on, in the public in the street, but nobody's around, and I'm just walking around bored. So I went to light a cigarette. And if I didn't stop at that moment to do that, the next thing I know, right in front of me, like 2 inches from my feet, I see this like humongous crash. I hear it, and I see like this white powder, like all over the street. Somebody or something got a toilet bowl off the like 4th floor of this building and threw it into the street at me, and it just missed. So I go busting into this door in this house. It's like lights and siren, up the stairs. I got my gun out. I'm looking around, and I'm like, this guy try to kill me. And I get on the radio, and I'm like, have, somebody, I need a backup, no emergency, just, one of the officers on the other beats, or somebody on the street. I got to search this, searching a closed building that's under construction. Might be some, burglars or perpetrators in this place. So they like, yeah, okay, no problem. They said, and when guys hear you call for help, even though you tell them it's not an emergency, they respond, And I must have 6, 7 guys come running along, a couple cars, and we searched these 3 buildings and the whole roofs of all the buildings in the block. There was nobody there.
Yeah.
There was like plaster and stuff on the roof. There was no footprints from where it came from.
Now,
this is like, it was tar, and you could see if somebody was up there, we would have found something.
Yeah.
But this is not something that could just have fallen off a ledge or something like that. It would have to have been thrown off.
Right, because there's an alleyway, like a space between the front of the building and the sidewalk. There's like 2 blocks of sidewalk, right? Maybe 6 feet, 8 feet across.
Mm-hmm.
And the building is actually another 12 feet from that first sidewalk. You know what I'm saying? They call these things areaways in New York, where it's just an area in front. You have a little fence or something, and you go up the stairs or go in the bottom of the house. And I mean, this had to be thrown. Wasn't windy. Wasn't rainy. It was, daytime. There was no storms. The sun was out. Like, holy God.
And man, Jocko, that would have been a hell of a way to go out. What happened to Jocko? He got hit by the crapper.
Right on the knock. Thank God that cigarette. See, I said smoking's good for you. It saved my life.
It saves you that moment. Yeah.
Well, that's bizarre. I mean, I don't know if it was just happenstance. I mean, I've heard of people that they just, this thought comes to the mind to do something mundane.
Right.
whatever it is. And whatever it is, that it either they have a chance meeting with somebody that's important, or they get miss being hit by a car or something like that. So you have that, but then you also have the strange thing like, where the hell did this come from?
Exactly. I mean, that's what the first
Yeah.
thing I was like, what the? I was mad because someone tried to kill me, And hey, we went charging in there, and I was up there right away, and I didn't even want to walk on the roof because it was like tar and powder, and it's like, I don't know whether they were cementing or what they were doing, but I was like, wait a minute, there's no footprints, and this is where it had to come from, because it couldn't. I saw it come straight down. It wasn't like
Right.
thrown from the side or something, and nobody could have flung it behind me. I mean, it was, they're heavy, and it was just freaky.
No,
And these
sometimes
guys, they were all looking at me, shaking their heads, man. Hey, yeah. And I'm saying, oh, thank God I never told them these other things.
yeah.
But you could see where my feet were, and the thing, like, disintegrated around it. It was a new one. And, it's just like powder. And you could see, my feet were there, like where the dust went, like where my feet were. And I was like, holy God, it missed me by inches.
Wow.
Mm.
Do you have any more stories?
Well, I'll tell you, there's one funny one we had where,
Okay, let's hold that one, because
okay,
what I'd like to do, just briefly tell us a little bit about moving to South Carolina and this task force solving cold cases, just kind of briefly, and then we'll end with the funny one. That'll be a good way to go.
Great.
But so I know you were on disability. You had to retire because of an
right,
injury on the
right,
job,
yeah. They
and
wouldn't keep me because they were afraid, liability-wise, the contracts all say, my doctor wrote them, and, you go to the
well,
police surgeons, and they said, no, you can't, because if something happens, then they're going to be responsible.
Well, Jocko, all the hotshot TV detectives and in the books, they've all got some kind of like a bullet near the heart or the
Yeah,
spine.
right, they're running around, no problem.
Right. David Jansen is Harry O. He would kick in every once in a while, but in the meantime, he's solving cases and getting babes. So it's not a bad way to go.
Right, I got it, yeah.
So tell
I
us.
didn't have that. Sorry.
Well, we can fill in the blanks, but tell us how did that happen? I know that you got involved with some cold cases, and you guys were really a real force to be reckoned with.
Well, what happened was, I was down here, and I was just looking at the paper one day, and I saw this case where they had we would call it a dump job, where somebody was killed, stuffed into a bag, tied up, and the
Ugh.
way they were done, the way it was done, and it reminded me of these, stuff I would see in New York. So I called my partner and I said, hey, look, check this out. I saw these with the names in the paper. They had some names of the people, the person they thought it was. And, I told him what it was about. I said, John, this is like a drug deal, There's something gone wrong here. It was a dump job. This guy was killed probably somewhere else. There was no blood, a lot of blood there. And, we could figure it out forensically. The sheriff had done that there at the sheriff's office. And so he looks it up, and he finds out who this guy is. They get the task force, my guys I used to work with. He calls them up, and he was getting ready to retire, like within months. And so they find out where the guy is. He's from here. He parks in front of the house. 3:00 in the morning. They get a warrant. They knock his door in. It's great because that's the time we like to go get him. They're in bed drooling, and he's in his pajamas, and they drag him out, and he confesses to this thing. So now they pick up his other people up there. There's like 4 of them up there. There's 3 more down here. They were selling drugs with guns and money and going back and forth up from New York to Florida, from Maine to Florida, back and forth, up and down. And it wound up that he had killed a few people in the course of this because he was trying to gain control of this to get all the money. And I go up there to extradite the guy. The judge I see is a guy I used to have in my court part that I used to go through criminal court now, and he's in Supreme Court now. And I had a buddy of mine, and we had made some contact with the governor's office, who was the one Republican that we had known at the time. He was Pataki. And he got the paperwork done. This guy I went to college with, who's a councilman or something. And it was all legitimate, but, they got the wheels rolling where we got this guy quick because we wanted to expedite it where we could find out who, these other people were without them going into the wind. So we made it secret, went up there and got them out quick. And sheriff, we had called, my partner called the sheriff's office department, explains it to him. So then one day I just get a call and, hey, this is Detective so-and-so, the sheriff would like to see you. I'm like, really? Okay. So I go see him and he says, how would you like to work for us? Like, well, I said, look, I can't answer the bell every day. If it's something like that, I got to, I can't work officially for you guys, on payroll. So I'll just volunteer. I don't care. You don't have to pay me. And I said, I got some buddies of mine that are down here that I had realized when I retired, there were other cops down here from New York. There was a few others. And guys I knew that I worked with, they were all coming to retire here. I was telling them how nice it was. And they did. And they came. And we had two guys that were old veterans up there, and the detectives, they gave us them. We had an attorney, also this guy from New York, and the two detectives we had with us, one was a Boston cop at one time, and he was in the Coast Guard for like Vietnam. The other guy was an Air Force investigator, criminal investigation division. His expertise was diving, and he was one of the best arson investigators the Air Force had. This guy, when 9/11 hit, they called him down there, and he found the engine inside the Pentagon.
Oh, wow.
So I don't want to hear from anybody that thing didn't happen, because my guy, he was there, and he found that engine buried in the Pentagon when it was searching.
That's good to know, because the way the conspiracy nuts go on anything.
You know what it is? People don't even know how that building was built and why it fell down and how it fell down. Mm-hmm. It was one of a kind. And it was very, very unique. And that's a whole nother show, but I could tell you all about that.
Okay.
Because my guys were in there crawling around that I knew. Actually, the two of them that were on my task force down here for the Cold Case Squad, they were both in it. And, one of them died very young, my partner from the academy, heart problems. And he probably, it was before everybody realized what was going on with that place. Mm. But anyway, the sheriff asked us, he was on a conveyor belt. He was a homicide detective. They had a conveyor belt set up where they went through every single crumb in that building. And but we put this unit together, and he had one case that he was very, very concerned. He never forgot about it. He was a very honest, very religious fellow, the sheriff. He's a swell guy. I love him today.
And this was a cold case that had been dormant for years.
13 years. A 13-year-old girl who was found dead in this wooded area that they use like a shortcut to come back and forth from school. I mean, you can imagine the parents not knowing. People had an idea of who was involved, perhaps, and we just took it right from the beginning, like it was the day it happened, and got into it, because we were taught old school, and we didn't call people on the phone. We interviewed people face to face, because you want to see their reactions. You want to ask them certain questions that you know the answers to and see what they tell you, without giving too much away. We kind of infiltrated this group, and we put one guy away for 10 years who was there and knew about it, and the other guy's serving life without parole. So
excellent.
We did that. We had it solved in like less than 6 months. It was like 30 days, a couple, 2-3 days, and 2-3 months, and the hardest part was getting the solicitor, the DA, to actually take the case, and prosecute it, because they all want. It's not only him, but prosecutors today seem to want, videotapes, confessions, and 100 witnesses. They don't want to just like go to court and like, I don't know. I have my own theories about that, but
Well, you guys did some superb work. There's nothing more haunting than a cold case that is not solved, but then when something like your task force can come in and bring light to some of those and solve some of those, that must have given everybody involved such a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys say, well, they're just too busy to look at this stuff all day, all the time, to do other than just if a call comes in, they check it out, a tip, But, they're busy on current cases. So we were something that was good because we didn't have them. There was another one with a small child who was mentally disabled, and he was missing one day, and we had narrowed that down to his parents. And some other folks, and some weird stuff about that too. But we had wanted them to be watched, and we were sitting in this meeting, all these local chiefs and sheriffs and the FBI and the state law enforcement division. And I'm not even sitting at a table. I'm standing in the background because I was always, I didn't want anybody to think like we were these guys from New York, these hot shots like you see on TV, because they already had that attitude about us. They thought like we were these guys that didn't think, we knew everything, which we did, but, we didn't want to tell. So we just went about our business very quietly. The difference is we dealt with so much volume that they don't see elsewhere. So you see the same things over and over and over, and you get to realize, wait a minute, this is what happened here. And you try to never zero in on something where they have a tendency, if you don't see a lot of it, you think about what you saw last time, and they look at that, and you get tunnel vision, and you don't really, look at the whole thing together and be open to anything. You have to have numerous theories. You can't just say this is the way it happened. So this little kid had left the house. I mean, for instance, they said he couldn't ever, his mentality, he couldn't put a key in the door and turn it. He wouldn't know how to do that. And so when the guys got there, the first detectives, they called us in later because the sheriff saw what was going on. One of the guys took the key out of the door. I'm like, where's the key? Oh, I took it out. It's over there. I said, do you wear gloves? No. I was like, holy shit. Are you kidding me? Like, that's the case right there. If he can't open the door, somebody opened the door and took him out. That was it.
Huh.
So we're in this meeting, and they're all talking about how, and I'm saying, look, you need to get, I told the sheriff, we need to have these houses watched 24/7. Well, they decided that at midnight they didn't want to do it anymore. And they were all talking about, the FBI guy's like, well, if we don't have them by now, forget it. The surveillance is a waste of time. So that night they left at like 12 o'clock or something. The next morning, the kid's body is found in this pond. And it looked like he took a bath. He wasn't in this pond all this time. He was missing. And I was like, I told you, as soon as you take the surveillance away, I said, the kid's going to turn up. And this FBI guy was so embarrassed. He's like, who are you? I mean, what do you mean, who am I? See, I forgot more than you're going to learn, pal. Forget it. I don't want to talk about it. And the sheriff was flabbergasted. He's like, you were right. And he never didn't listen to me again after that. Like, he never listened to any other opinions. He would say, what do you think? And I would tell him, and we'd do it, And it always worked out well, I guess. So, because we were all of the same mind in our unit. And stuff like that. So it was good. I always like making fools of the FBI. I don't know. I mean, we can see today they have a lot of problems.
It's a perfect TV show. You got the tension between the police and the FBI.
Well, we had that anyway in New York, because they would always jump in there. And we're like, well, what are you doing here? Nobody called you. We don't need you. You can't take the case unless we call you. Or if it's a bank robbery, then you take it, because they would wait for us to make the arrest, and then they'd get it. We'd say, no, we're not doing it. It's your job. Take it.
Okay. We've got another paranormal story, and this one you say is a quick one, and it's got a little bit of humor with it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. We're going into into the house at the end of the tour and the task force, and it's like 2 o'clock. We're getting ready to go back in. We're about 4 blocks from the station house, and we see this station wagon driving down the street, and this guy is like wobbling around. He's going through all the red lights, like right behind him. There's no other cars on the street but us and him. We're in a marked police car. So we light him up and pull him over, walk over to the car. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Who are you? He's got a license plate from Pennsylvania. He said, I'm from Pittsburgh. I was like, really? Yeah, he got laid off. He says, I have these aliens telling me what to do. He says, they told me where to come to get a job. Thinking this guy's drunk or whatever. But he wasn't. We had these flashlights that had little sniffers on them. And you put the light in the car and it catches his breath and it'll tell you if he's intoxicated. I made him get out, walk around. He was okay. Put him back in the car because I want really no part of him at this point. My partner's on the other side of the car now, and we're doing it, tactics, how we're supposed to do it. And he's making all these funny faces, like, doing his finger around his ear, like brushing his teeth and putting it on his ear. He's crazy. And he could make he was funny as hell. And I'm like trying to hold it. I'm like, I'm trying to crack up, take his license, go back in the car, and I'm hysterical. I'm like, stop this. Don't do this, This guy will be a nut. We'll have to take him to, like, Kings County and put him in the psycho ward. So, I mean, he's convinced these aliens are telling him where to go. So he says to me, look, he says, you see, he takes off his baseball hat, and he's got foil in it. You got to have the foil on.
Oh, no.
I said, now listen, let me show you something. So I take my hat off. And now we have that wire, and it's an 8-point, like, military hat, and we can't wear them like 25 mission guys when they take the wire out. So we don't have headphones or nothing. So the wire's in the hat, it sticks out, right? The corners. And I said, you see this? We got antennas, pal. This is our tech. We know what's going on. That's why we pulled Joe. Now listen, here's what they want you to do. We're trying to tell them, stop for the lights. Pay attention. Here's a place where you can go to a hotel. We wrote it down. Here's your license, registration, insurance. You're all good. You had no wants, nothing, no violations. Good luck for the job. Go down there, get a good night's rest, and think it over tomorrow. The guy had so much junk in his car. I don't know how he even see out the window. But, we weren't writing him no tickets because I was not going to court to see this guy. He wasn't going to show up anyway. And it was just, we used a little discretion and gave him courtesy and, sent them to a hotel. But this guy was wacky, boy.
That was a pretty good tactic, I have to say, Jocko, to say that you were in touch with the, I guess, a higher group of aliens.
It was like, shh, don't tell nobody. We know what's going on. And we used to give people divorces. They put their hands on our memo books. We'd give them a divorce. They thought it was some law book. And we did all kinds of crazy stuff. And it wasn't just us. It was all the cops. We try to adjudicate. We were too busy to get involved in some stuff, and
right.
We saw it wasn't dangerous. And we just, we solved a lot of problems with discretion and our own discretionary, understanding of what's really going on.
Right.
And, we didn't get called back, and everybody was fine. Nobody, everything was solved. So it was good.
Well, Jocko, this has been a blast. It was great to have you on the show. And people should know that I always say that I'm a correspondent on Mac Maloney's Military X-Files every week. And if they tune in, there's a pretty good chance that you'll be on again. And if they check the archives, you've been on. You've been on a few times. So appreciate all your stories. Appreciate your service as a police officer and also as on that task force. I know there was a lot more to it, and you guys solved a lot of crimes. So
it's 9 years. So we did it. We a lot of things we did. We just showed people that what they thought wasn't really it, and people weren't murdered where it was accidental overdoses maybe or certain things. And
right.
You find a car with somebody dead in it on the side of the road. Why'd this guy pull over and die? Did somebody kill him? We had to explain these things. And a lot of our help assistance came from Dr. Michael Baden, also, who's the New York City medical examiner. Probably in my opinion, he is the medical examiner of the world. I mean, he's called everywhere to do cases. From, the OJ case to the Romanovs when they found their bodies in the former Soviet Union, and he looked at those bones. JFK's case when they reopened it, the Warren Commission. And he'll tell you exactly what he believes to be the truth, and he's done 30,000 autopsies. So we relied a great deal on him.
Astounding.
And he's came down to New York on his own dime, never charged us, and testified in cases down here for us. So he's a great guy.
Well, good deal. Well, again, thanks for being on the show tonight.
Hey, thank you guys. I loved it. I appreciate it. I'm happy to let people know, cops are humans too. We're just like everybody else. I used to take my Superman cape off, put it in my locker, go home, and I was just a regular guy until I got back to work.
And Andy, it's been a great show. I'm glad you were here tonight.
Is he still there?
Well, I think maybe we lost Andy. Huh?
Oh, Yeah.
Well, it's not a problem.
Over there.
I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
So I'd muted because I had a coughing fit
Oh.
earlier and I didn't realize I had unmuted it. No, it's been absolutely brilliant. I love the stories, particularly the one with the hairdryer. That's just amazing. As I say, those
I got a
moments,
bunch of them.
it's those moments are those ones that just don't make any sense. And the woman's face, you're saying, almost like an untuned TV. The kind of
I mean,
distortion.
it was like, yeah,
Very
it was
strange.
just, it was like that snowy look. It was just, I mean, it was round, but it wasn't. I mean, it was not flat, but
Yeah.
keep that appearance. I mean, it was just awesome. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Well, we ran to church. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Incredible
good
story.
deal. Okay.
Thank
And,
you both, guys. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we'll have you back sometime, Jocko.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And just stand by just a second. I'll do my closeout, and we'll wrap up the show. The High Strangeness Factor was created by Steve Ward and Andy Mercer and is copyrighted on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I want to thank our fearless leaders here at the network, Irene Allen Block and Mark Johnson. I also want to thank Andy Mercer, not only as co-host, but also as the producer of the show. And Brian Zeller, who composed the theme music for the High Strangeness Factor. And as I said before, you can hear me weekly as a correspondent on Mac Maloney's Military X-Files. And I am Steve Ward, your humble host here on the High Strangeness Factor, a displaced Yank here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Thank you for listening. I will see you all again in a fortnight. Take care.